I was doing spirituals at the time, Dick.
All right, what caused you at that point in your career of 57 to turn to this kind of singing?
My economic situation.
Celebrities, and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
Darling, you send me.
Sam Cooke was more than just a great singer. He was a man who believed in change. He saw the struggles of black people and wanted to make a difference. But what most people don't know is that Sam had a close-knitted friendship with Malcom X and Muhammad Ali. Malcom X felt Sam was not radical enough with his music, and that made him criticize Cooke. Many believe Sam Cooke tried to warn Malcom X about the dangers ahead. But speaking the truth came with a price. Let's delve in.
She claimed she didn't know who he was, which is a stone-ass lie. Everybody knew Sam, especially that side of town.
Sam Cooke was one of the first black artists to find big success in America. At a time when black singers had trouble getting played on the radio or making money from their music, Cooke broke barriers. He had a smooth voice, and his songs were loved by many.
Sam Cooke was my kind of person because he was interested quietly in black history.
Hits like You Send Me and Cupid made him a household name. But Cooke wanted more than just fame. He wanted control over his own music. He did not want record labels to take most of his earnings, so he decided to start his own record company. This was a big deal because few black artists had that kind of power in the music industry. Starting his own label gave Cooke the freedom to make the music he wanted. It also allowed him to help other black musicians.
I was doing spirituals at the time, Dick.
All right, what caused you at that point in your career of 57 to turn to this kind of singing?
My economic situation.
He signed and promoted new artists, giving them a chance to succeed. Many of them would not have had opportunities without Cooke's help. At that time, record companies often took advantage of black singers. Cooke wanted to change that. Cooke was also involved in the civil rights movement. He wanted equal rights for black people in America. He used his success to speak out against racism. He was friends with Malcom X, Jim Brown, and Muhammad Ali. These men were also fighting for black rights in different ways.
When black people were being discriminated against, that was the nature of the country at that particular time.
Malcom X was a strong voice against racial injustice. Jim Brown was a famous football player who wanted better opportunities for black athletes. Muhammad Ali, who was still known as Cassius Clay at the time, had just won the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship. They all had big ideas about how to improve life for black Americans. One important night in 1964, these four men gathered at a hotel in Miami. Cassius Clay had just shocked the world by beating Sonny Liston to become the boxing champion. He was only 22 years old, and his victory was a huge moment in sports history.
I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, can't nobody be against me, Sonny. I shook out the world.
After the fight, he, Cooke, Malcom X, and Jim Brown met in a hotel room. What they talked about remains a mystery. Some say they discussed civil rights. Others believe they just celebrated Clay's win. Years later, a play and a movie called One Night in Miami imagined what that night was like. The country was going through a lot of change at the time. Just 3 months earlier, President John F. Kennedy had been assassinated.
John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas.
Before that, a church bombing in Alabama had killed 4 young black girls. The fight for civil rights was becoming more intense. People were demanding change, but racism was still strong. A few months after this night in Miami, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, making it illegal to discriminate based on race. Even though Cooke was active in the civil rights movement, Malcom X criticized him. He felt Cooke should sing more songs about racial injustice instead of love songs.
I love you, 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 I love you.
Malcolm believed that music was a powerful tool for change. He wanted Cooke to use his platform to fight racism more openly. Cooke believed that success in the mainstream music industry was already a form of protest. By becoming a major star, he showed that black artists could achieve great things. He also helped open doors for others.
These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals.
But Cooke was not completely silent on racial issues. Before their meeting in Miami, he had already written "A Change Is Gonna Come," a song that would become a major anthem for the civil rights movement.
But I know a change gonna come.
The song talked about the struggles black people faced and their hope for a better future. He performed it on television, but his performance was overshadowed by the Beatles appearing on another show around the same time. 6 weeks after their meeting, Malcom X left the Nation of Islam, the religious group he had been part of for many years. He and Muhammad Ali also had a falling out. Ali stayed with the Nation of Islam and turned his back on Malcolm. They never spoke again. Jim Brown, who was part of the famous meeting in Miami, continued his career in football. The movie One Night in Miami makes it seem like he retired from football soon after that night, but that is not true.
And now here come Cassius, the exact contrast of everything that was representative of the Negro image. He said he was the greatest. All of the odds were against him. He upset the odds makers. He won.
Malcolm X and anybody else who attacks talks about attacking Elijah Muhammad will die. No man can oppose the message of Almighty God verbally or physically and get away with it.
He played for 2 more seasons and even won a championship. In 1966, he left football to focus on acting. He became one of the first black actors to have leading roles in Hollywood with his most famous movie, which was 100 Rifles. Muhammad Ali went on to become one of the greatest boxers of all time. He also became a major figure in the fight for black rights. He refused to go to war in Vietnam, saying he would not fight for a country that treated black people unfairly. Malcom X continued his activism, but was assassinated in 1965. His death was another major blow to the fight for civil rights, which we would talk about more shortly. But now, let's delve into the civil rights anthem Sam created.
Sam Cooke was my kind of person because he was interested quietly in black history.
So Sam wanted to do something different. He saw what was happening in America, especially with the civil rights movement, and felt the need to speak up. He was inspired by Bob Dylan's song, "Blowin' in the Wind," and wanted to create a song that would touch people's hearts and inspire them to fight for change.
That song affects me more than any song that he ever recorded.
In 1963, Cooke and his band were turned away from a whites-only motel in Louisiana. He felt humiliated and angry. That moment stayed with him. He realized that, as a black man, he was treated unfairly no matter how famous he was. He wanted to express those feelings in a song. He sat down and wrote lyrics about the struggles of black people and their hope for a better future. His words were powerful, describing the pain of being treated unfairly, but also holding on to hope that things would change.
But I know a change gonna come.
The song was different from Cooke's usual music. Before this, he was known for lighthearted, romantic songs. His fans loved his smooth voice and happy melodies. But A Change Is Gonna Come was deeper. When Cooke recorded the song, he poured his heart into it. The music was powerful, and his voice carried deep emotion. The first time he played it for his friend Bobby Womack, Womack told him, "It sounds like death." The song had a sad and serious tone, but Cooke knew it was important. He believed it could inspire people to keep fighting for their rights. He only performed it live once because the emotions were so strong.
He was telling you the story. He said, I was born by the river, and there's a weight in a little old tent. he's painting this picture. Oh, and just like the river I've been running ever since.
Sadly, Cooke never got to see the full impact of his song. Just weeks before it was released, he was shot and killed in a Los Angeles motel. He was only 33 years old. His death shocked the world. Years later, in 2008, when Barack Obama won the presidential election, he referenced the song in his victory speech. He said, "It's been a long time coming, but tonight, change has come to America." This moment proved that Cooke's message was still alive and meaningful.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
Sam grew up in a church where his father was a preacher. Cooke and his brothers and sisters had a gospel singing group called the Singing Children. By the time he was 14, he joined another gospel group called the Highway QCs. While singing in gospel, he met Lou Rawls, who was also a young gospel singer at the time. They became friends and would later work together in the music business. Cooke became famous when he joined a gospel group called the Soul Stirrers. This was a very popular group that already had many fans. He replaced their lead singer and quickly became the main attraction. His smooth voice and charm made young people, especially girls, rush to see him sing. Some of the famous gospel songs he recorded with the group included "Jesus Gave Me Water" and "Peace in the Valley." He even wrote some songs for the group. Cooke was helping gospel music reach younger people who had never been interested before.
Jesus gave a water, Jesus gave a water.
Even though gospel music was his first love, Cooke started to see that pop music had a much bigger audience. He wanted to reach more people and make more money. But there was a big problem. At that time, gospel singers were not supposed to sing pop music. Many church people saw pop as worldly and wrong. To avoid problems, Cooke released his first pop song under a fake name, Dale Cooke. However, everyone still knew it was him because of his unique voice.
I wondered if I could do the same thing. I wondered if I could be as successful singing secular music as gospel.
His record company was not happy with the music he was making. They expected him to sing in a fast and exciting style like Little Richard. But Cooke had his own style. He liked soft, romantic songs. This led to a disagreement, and he left the company. He wanted full control over his music and career.
Darling, you send me.
In 1957, he signed with a new company and released You Send Me. The song became a huge hit, reaching number one on the pop charts. Suddenly, he went from making $200 a week to over $5,000 a week. This success made him a national star. He started performing on TV and in concerts across the country. He was one of the few black singers at the time who had both black and white fans. Over the next few years, Cooke had many hit songs, including Cupid, Chain Gang,
Working on the chain gang,
Wonderful World, and Twistin' the Night Away. He knew that success was not just about singing, it was also about business. He also helped young artists get started, including Bobby Womack and Johnny Taylor. Sam's business deals, especially with his manager, didn't come without controversy. He partnered with Alan Klein, a manager known for renegotiating contracts with big music companies. Klein helped Sam sign a new deal with RCA Records.
He wrote a lot of it. And I'm going to talk about that in my book. I've got a book.
However, the deal came with some criticism. In 1963, Sam signed a 5-year contract with Klein to manage his record label, SAR Records, and his publishing company, Kegs Music. Klein negotiated a deal with RCA Victor, where a company called Tracy Leonti, owned by Klein and managed by J.W. Alexander, would produce and own Sam's recordings. In return, RCA would handle the distribution and give Sam a royalty on each record sold. The deal seemed good for Sam, but it also meant that he had to give up some of his creative and financial control, as earlier mentioned. Cooke continued his music career, but tragedy struck in December 1964. In the early morning hours, guests at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles heard gunshots. But gun violence was common in that area, so they didn't think much of it. Even the police were not surprised when they arrived. They found Sam Cooke.
Sam had received a phone call that brought him to that motel with the girl.
Many could not believe that a man with such a beautiful voice had died in such a horrible way. Earlier that evening, Sam had gone to dinner at a restaurant called Martoni's. It was a popular place where many musicians and celebrities gathered. He was there with his friend and producer Al Schmidt and Schmidt's wife. Sam was in a good mood, talking with friends and showing off a large amount of cash, about $5,000. He had earned this money from recent concerts.
He was making money, and he was making the headway, and he was making it without them.
At some point, Sam started talking to a young woman named Elisa Boyer. She was 22 years old. Later, Sam and Elisa left the restaurant together. Sam told Schmidt that he would meet him later at a nightclub, but he never arrived. Sam was married to Barbara Campbell, who was at home with their 2 children. But that night, he checked into the Hacienda Motel with Elisa, signing the register as husband and wife.
She claimed she didn't know who he was, which is a stone-ass lie. Everybody knew Sam, especially that side of town.
What happened next is unclear. Elisa later told the police that Sam forced her into the motel room. She claimed he pinned her down and tore her clothes. She said she was afraid he was going to hurt her. While Sam was in the bathroom, she grabbed her clothes, and his too, including his wallet and money, and ran out. She called the police from a nearby phone booth, saying she had been kidnapped.
And this prostitute, I think that they got paid off and were in cahoots with somebody.
When Sam came out of the bathroom and saw that Elisa was gone, he became very angry. He was wearing only a sport coat. He went to the motel manager, Bertha Franklin, demanding to know where Elisa was. Franklin later said that Sam broke down her door and grabbed her arms. She claimed that he was aggressive and that she had to fight back. She said she kicked and bit him to protect herself.
She said Sam came to her door with only a jacket on.
Franklin said that Sam would not stop, so she grabbed a gun and shot him 3 times. 2 bullets missed, but 1 hit him in the heart and lungs, killing him. The police ruled his death as justifiable homicide, meaning Franklin was not charged with a crime. But many people did not believe this story. People who knew Sam said he was not a violent man. Some believed he was tricked and set up. The Hacienda Motel was known for crime and prostitution. Some think Elisa Boyer led him there on purpose to rob him. He had $5,000 that night, but the money was never found. Later, Boyer was arrested for prostitution. In 1979, she was even convicted of murder in another case.
This woman at the hotel or motel who had murdered people before there always had gotten off.
There are many unanswered questions about Sam's death. Some say the gun Franklin used did not match the one registered to her. The bullet from Sam's body also went missing from police evidence. When the autopsy was done, doctors found a large bump on his head. Franklin said she beat him with a wooden broomstick after shooting him. But some people question this. If she was scared for her life, why would she drop a loaded gun and use a stick instead?
Which is a stone-ass lie. Everybody knew Sam.
There's also something strange about Franklin's story. She said she fought Sam, but when she appeared on TV 5 days later, she had no injuries. If there was a violent struggle, wouldn't she have bruises? Also, guests at the motel said they didn't hear gunshots or a fight. This is strange because Franklin was on the phone with the motel owner at the time. The owner said they heard parts of the struggle.
How do you resolve this mystery?
Crime scene photos showed cuts and bruises on Sam's body. Singer Etta James saw his body at the funeral. She later wrote in her book that his injuries were much worse than reported. She said his head was almost separated from his shoulders and his hands were broken. She did not believe Franklin's story. She said no woman with a broomstick could cause that kind of damage to a strong man like Sam. Some people believe Sam was killed somewhere else, and his body was brought to the motel later. Others think a third person was involved. One name that comes up often is Alan Klein, Sam's business manager. Klein had a reputation for being ruthless. Some believe he may have wanted control over Sam's money.
It ended up that Alan Klein actually owned Tracy, whereas Sam didn't, and Sam was under the impression that he owned her.
Another big issue is how the police handled the case. The Los Angeles Police Department closed the investigation quickly. Many people felt they did not care about finding the truth. Sam's friend Muhammad Ali said that if Sam had been a famous white artist, like Frank Sinatra, the FBI would have investigated. Norman Edelin, one of the few black police officers in Los Angeles at the time, believed racism played a role. He said the police saw Sam's death as just another black man being killed in a motel. They did not treat it as an important case.
During the funeral, Johnny Morissette, who was on the label, kept crying. He was like this. "I'm sorry, Sam. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm sorry, Sam." He kept saying this.
Some even believe the FBI might have been involved. At the time, the FBI, led by J. Edgar Hoover, was watching many black leaders and celebrities. Sam was friends with Muhammad Ali and Malcom X, both of whom were under FBI surveillance. Some think this connection may have made Sam a target. Talking about Malcom X, he was murdered 2 months after Sam Cooke's death. He knew his life was in danger. He had told people that members of the Nation of Islam wanted to kill him. He had left the group and was speaking out against them. On the day he died, he was getting ready to speak to a crowd in New York City.
Apparently, 2 men approached the speaker's rostrum and discharged shots at him from apparently very close range.
As he stood on stage, someone in the audience yelled something to cause a distraction. When Malcom X and his security looked in that direction, a man ran up and shot him in the chest with a shotgun. Then, 2 more men rushed forward and fired more shots at him. He was taken to the hospital, but the doctors could not save him. He had been shot 21 times in different parts of his body. He was pronounced dead a short time later. People were shocked and heartbroken. Malcom X had been a strong and powerful voice for black people, and now he was gone.
He sustained 1 shot in the lower right chin, and the other 6 hit him in the chest and body.
One of the shooters, a man named Talmadge Hayer, was caught at the scene. The crowd attacked him before the police arrived. Later, 2 other men, Norman 3X Butler and Thomas 15X Johnson, were also arrested. All 3 were members of the Nation of Islam, and they were convicted of murder and sent to prison for life. After spending many years behind bars, Butler and Johnson were released. Butler changed his name to Muhammad Abdul Aziz, and later became the leader of a mosque in Harlem. Johnson, who had left the Nation of Islam and converted to Sunni Islam, also continued to insist he was innocent. He died in 2009. Hayer, who also converted to Sunni Islam, was released from prison in 2010.
2 men who were wrongly convicted and jailed for decades for assassinating Malcom X in 1965.
In 2021, new evidence came to light. Investigators found that the police and the FBI had hidden important information that could have proven Butler and Johnson were not involved. Their convictions were overturned, meaning they were officially cleared of the crime. Later, Aziz sued the city for wrongful imprisonment. He had spent years in prison for something he did not do. A biography about Malcom X, written by Les Payne and Tamara Payne, revealed more details about the killers. It named different men from the Newark Mosque as the real shooters. One of them, William Bradley, was the one who fired the first shotgun blast. But these men were never brought to justice.